I used to take odd jobs, the kind of under-the-table work you only hear about from someone's cousin's friend at the bar. That's how I ended up in Oathridge, a town I swear never existed on any map. I remember the call clear as day. A guy named Mr. Mercer offered me and my buddy Clay $3,000 cash to dig a well on his family's land. No permits, no questions. Just show up with shovels, a generator, and 2 days' worth of supplies. Honestly, it sounded shady as hell, but $3,000 split 2 ways wasn't bad, and Clay had just gotten out of a rough patch. We could use the work. So we packed up, loaded the tools in my rusted-out Ford, and punched Oathridge into the GPS. Nothing. No roads, no hits, just a blinking dot in the middle of nowhere. Clay laughed it off. Probably one of those forgotten towns, you know. Might even be cool. I forced a grin, but something about that blank spot on the map made my stomach twist. We drove 5 hours west, then another 2 along gravel roads until the trees thickened and the sky felt quieter. Not dark, just muffled, like someone put a pillow over the world. Finally, we reached it. Oathridge. A rusted sign leaned sideways, choked in vines. Population count, scratched off. No zip code. But the town was still there, in a way. White picket fences, gas lamps, wood siding that hadn't been painted since the Kennedy administration. Everything looked like it was paused mid-century, like we'd stumbled into a preserved movie set from the 1950s. But it wasn't abandoned. People were still there. They just didn't act like it. Mr. Mercer greeted us at the edge of town. Tall guy, pressed shirt, clean hands. Too clean for a man hiring us to dig a well. "Appreciate you boys coming all this way," he said, handing me an envelope stuffed with cash. "You'll find the site out behind the church. Follow the flags. Dig as deep as you can until you hit water." He paused. "But don't go further than that." Clay chuckled. "What happens if we do?" Mercer didn't smile. "Just don't," he said. "Some things are better left buried." He turned and walked off before we could ask anything else. We set up camp near the flagged-off patch behind the churchyard. The place gave me the creeps. The trees leaned in like they were eavesdropping. No wind, no birdsong, just the soft crunch of old leaves under our boots. We got to digging. The soil was rich, black, and oddly cold. Easy to move at first, but the deeper we went, the heavier it felt, like something below didn't want to be disturbed. By sundown, we'd carved out a 6-foot ring, maybe 5 feet deep. We'd hit something hard near the bottom, a stone slab maybe, but we were too tired to deal with it that night. We cooked canned beans over a propane stove and tried not to talk about how quiet the town was. No dogs, no kids, no TVs glowing behind windows, just silence and shadows. Later that night, Clay nudged me awake. "Dude, someone's watching." I sat up fast, flashlight in hand. At the tree line just beyond our pit, I saw her. A woman, elderly, wrapped in a shawl, just standing there, staring at us like we were statues. I called out, "You okay, Mom? Need help?" She didn't move, didn't blink, just slowly raised a bony finger and pointed directly at the pit. "You let it breathe," she rasped. Her voice sounded like dry leaves on a tombstone. "Now, it remembers." And just like that, she turned and walked back into the dark. Clay stared at me. "Dude, what the actual hell was that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. because deep below the surface, past the soil and roots and rock, I swear I heard something stir, something inhale. We didn't sleep much that night, not after the old woman appeared. I kept telling myself it was just a town eccentric, some local with dementia maybe, but Clay wouldn't let it go. "You let it breathe," he kept whispering. "What the hell does that mean, man?" He must have said it a dozen times before finally passing out by the fire. Me? I just sat there, staring into the trees, waiting for that voice to return. It didn't, but something else did. By morning, the pit had changed. We came back to finish the dig, only to find the dirt around the rim had cracked, like dried skin. A faint black residue was seeping from the edge, not mud, thicker, almost like tar. Clay dipped his shovel in and scraped at the hard layer we'd hit the day before. It groaned. Not the shovel, the ground. I swear to God it groaned like it had lungs. He stopped, wide-eyed. "Did you hear that?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's probably pressure or gas buildup or something." Even I didn't believe what I said. We kept digging, but progress was slow. The deeper we went, the colder it got. Unnaturally cold, like we were digging into winter. By midday, we'd hit a solid black stone slab, smooth as glass, but veined with red mineral lines that shimmered like blood when the sun hit them. Clay ran his hand over it. "Feels warm." I checked it too. He was right. It was warm, even though the soil around it was freezing. That night we didn't talk much, just stared at the pit, waiting, wondering. We weren't the only ones. Around midnight, there was a knock on the side of the truck. Not the door. The side panel, metal on metal, slow and deliberate. I stepped out with a flashlight, expecting Mercer, or maybe the old woman again. Instead, it was an old man, dressed in a dusty suit, frayed cuffs, one cloudy eye. He looked like he hadn't slept in decades. He didn't introduce himself. He just stared at the pit behind us, then said, "You boys ever heard of the Hollow Men?" I exchanged a look with Clay. "What?" "They were the ones who sealed it last time, after it tried to come up. Took 12 of them to hold the lines, and one to sacrifice." He sniffed, almost wistfully. "Thing about the Hollow is, it forgets it's hungry until you wake it." Clay backed up, nervous. "Okay, man, you're crazy. You need to leave." But I couldn't move. Something about what he said scratched at the inside of my skull. 12 to hold, one to sacrifice. "Don't dig any deeper," the old man muttered. "Leave the slab untouched. You break the seal, it remembers the way out." He turned to leave, then stopped and looked at me over his shoulder. "I seen you before, long time ago. You were crying by the edge." Then he walked into the trees and disappeared. The rest of the night was dead silent. Not even the wind dared to pass through Oathridge. The next morning, Clay was already packing up. "We're done, man. Screw this job. Screw this town." I didn't stop him. I should have. But something inside me, some curiosity, some pull, wouldn't let me leave. Instead, I went back to the well alone. I stared down into the black, breathless pit, hand trembling on the shovel. The slab below shimmered again, and I could have sworn I heard it whisper, "You came back." Clay left by noon, didn't even say goodbye. He just muttered something about bad dreams, threw his gear in the truck, and peeled off down the gravel road like the devil himself was chasing him. I don't blame him, because part of me wishes I'd gone with him. The other part, the part that stood there, staring down at that stone slab, listening to the whispers I swore were just wind, that part had already made up its mind. I wasn't leaving, not until I knew what was underneath. I worked slow, careful. The slab wasn't rock, not really. It felt too designed. It had corners, angles, grooves like veins or glyphs. And the more I uncovered, the more I realized this wasn't part of the earth at all. It was something placed there, buried, deliberately. The whispers got louder the more dirt I moved. Still faint, like murmurs through a wall, but clearer now, and rhythmic, like a chant. I couldn't understand the words, but I knew deep down they weren't meant to be heard by human ears. That night, I didn't sleep, didn't even try. I sat near the edge of the pit with my flashlight and notebook, drawing what I'd uncovered. The edge of the slab, the branching red veins, and that strange triangular spiral in the center. Every few minutes I'd glance toward the church across the field. No lights, no movement, but I felt watched. At one point I caught a figure in the shadows, too tall to be clay, too still to be natural. When I pointed my flashlight toward it, there was nothing. The next morning the earth shifted. I woke to a deep, low rumble beneath my feet, like distant thunder, but slower, heavier. The pit walls had cracked even further. A split ran across the slab's surface, exposing something beneath it. Something pulsing. I should have stopped. I should have left right then and there. But curiosity, it's like a disease. The more you feed it, the more it eats away at your reason. I climbed into the pit, bracing myself with a rope, and descended until my boots touched the slab itself. And that's when I felt it. Warmth. Not like sunlight or fire. This was different. It was breathing warmth, like standing over the mouth of something alive. The hair on my arms stood straight. The whispering was louder now, not in my ears, but inside my bones. I crouched and pressed my palm to the spiral glyph at the center of the stone. It responded. The slab vibrated under my hand. The spiral glowed a faint red, and for the briefest second, I heard Clay's voice behind me. "Why'd you leave me?" I turned so fast I lost my balance and tumbled backward into the dirt wall. There was no one there. I scrambled out of the pit and ran back to camp, heart hammering. I told myself it was exhaustion, dehydration, paranoia, nothing supernatural. But deep down, I knew that wasn't Clay. Not anymore. I went through his things. His duffel bag was still there, unopened. Inside, I found his water bottle and his journal. Most of it was sketches, notes, but the last page stopped me cold. The stone is calling. I see the spiral in my dreams now. There's something underneath it, and it wants me to open it. I think I already have. That night I heard footsteps around the camp, slow, deliberate, circling. I stayed inside the tent, holding my breath, clutching Clay's notebook. Then, just outside the canvas, inches from my face, I heard him whisper, "It remembers you." I didn't sleep again. The whispering wouldn't let me. It wasn't just around me anymore. It was inside me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the spiral, turning, beckoning. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't leaving. Not until I found out what was beneath that slab. I packed my gear, rope, flashlight, gloves, water, Clay's notebook, and a hammer. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I sure as hell wasn't expecting stairs. When I reached the pit, the slab had shifted. The center spiral was open now, like an iris pulled wide, and what lay beneath was impossible. Spiral-cut stone steps descending into pitch black, perfectly carved, symmetrical, old, older than the town, older than the soil, maybe older than us. I stood there for a long time, staring down into the dark. Something about it pulled at me, like gravity, but not physical. I should have walked away, but I didn't. I tied the rope around the edge, clipped in, and stepped onto the first stair. It wasn't long before the light from above faded. I clicked on my flashlight. The beam barely touched the walls. Everything was made of the same black stone, veined with faintly glowing red lines like dying embers. They pulsed in time with something deep below, something alive. The air changed too, thicker, not just humid, heavy, like it carried weight, like it remembered being breathed by other things before me. My footsteps echoed longer than they should have, and every few steps, I swore I heard a second echo, like I wasn't alone. After what felt like an hour, I reached a platform. The stairs ended at a circular chamber, massive and hollow, like the inside of a dome. In the center was a monolith. No, not a monolith. An eye, fused into the ground, closed, carved from the same stone but with sharper lines, more purposeful. Surrounding it were 12 stone pillars, each one cracked at the top, like they'd once held something, or someone. That's when I noticed the smell. Metallic, old, rotting, like wet coins left in a dead animal's mouth. I crept closer. The eye wasn't carved shut. It was sealed. I could see the thin crust of dried sediment along its edges, and underneath it, veins, red and twitching. Something had been trapped here, and I had just opened the door. A voice rang out from the darkness behind me. "You came back." I froze. It wasn't a whisper this time. It was clear, familiar. I turned slowly. Standing across the chamber, barely visible in the glow, was Clay. But he wasn't holding a flashlight, and he wasn't breathing. He stepped forward, barefoot. His eyes shimmered red. "Been waiting," he said. "You're always the last to remember." My throat clenched. "What the hell are you talking about? You lived here once, before the forgetting, before it fell." He gestured around the chamber. "This was home. The town was the seal. The people were the wardens. You were one of them." He smiled, too wide. "But you left. You broke the chain. And now, it's waking up." The eye in the center twitched. A hairline crack ran across its surface. I backed away. "This isn't real," I said, heart pounding. "You're not Clay." "No," he said softly. "I'm what's left when Clay stopped being Clay." He pointed to my chest. "And you're next." The walls began to hum. The red lines pulsed faster. The crack widened. Something beneath the seal began to shift, stretch, rise. I turned and ran, back toward the stairs, boots slipping on the stone, lungs burning in the thick, ancient air. Behind me, the chamber groaned like it was alive. Clay didn't follow. He just laughed, deep and distorted. You never should have left it breathing. I didn't stop running. Up the spiral steps, boots slamming stone, rope trailing behind me like a lifeline. But the stairs were longer now, twisting, looping, wrong. I counted them. 57 steps down. It should have been 57 steps back. Instead, they just kept going. The air grew colder the higher I climbed. Not just cold, hollow, like the warmth of the world had bled out, and I was moving through its corpse. I could still hear Clay, or whatever was using his voice, calling out from below, but it was getting quieter, not distant, muffled, like the stone itself was swallowing it. After what felt like hours, I reached the top, or thought I did. I pulled myself out of the pit, lungs on fire, only to find the sky wasn't sky anymore. It was red, no clouds, no sun, just a dim, pulsating crimson haze that coated everything like old blood. The trees were gone, the church, melted, half sunk, bent at impossible angles like it had been caught mid-collapse and frozen in place. And the town, Oathridge was still there, but different. Houses warped, windows pulsing like they were breathing, doors watching. And the people? They were standing motionless in the street. Dozens of them, heads tilted up, mouths open, eyes empty, all facing me. I backed away, heart racing. This wasn't the world I'd left. This was something else, somewhere else. And then, a voice, not Clay's this time, but mine. "You've been here before." I turned, nothing behind me, no one, just my own voice echoing in my head, but louder now, stronger. Memories started bleeding in like ink through wet paper, not full images, just flashes. Me, standing at the pit, younger, a crowd around me, chanting, 12 stones, a figure in the center, screaming, me. I stumbled toward town, trying to shake the visions loose, trying to find anything real. I passed Mercer's house. The door hung off its hinges, black rot spreading up the walls like veins. Inside, the living room was filled with pages, hundreds of them, pinned, taped, nailed to the walls, drawings of the spiral, of the slab, of me, and in the center, a photograph, black and white, a group of people standing in front of the well. I stared at the image, heart slamming into my ribs. There I was, young, clean-shaven, standing beside Clay, smiling. And in the background, that same old man who warned me. The caption written in faded ink. Oathridge Hollow, 1959, final offering. My hands shook. None of this made sense. I wasn't born in the 50s, but the proof was right in front of me. Clay had said it. You don't remember. And now, I was starting to. I left the house and headed toward the well, The townsfolk didn't move. They just watched, their mouths still open, like they were stuck in a moment between breath and scream. And the well was waiting. The slab had fully cracked open now, and what lay beneath it wasn't stairs. It was a throat, dark, pulsing, breathing. It opened slightly when I stepped close, like it recognized me. Another memory hit me like a punch to the gut. Me, younger, kneeling on the slab, tears streaming down my face, holding a knife, 12 others around me, chanting. The voice in my head, my own, whispering, "Someone has to stay." I fell to my knees. This was the truth. This wasn't my first descent. I'd lived here. I'd sealed it. I was part of the last ritual. The sacrifice meant to keep the hollow fed and dreaming. And somehow, I got out. But now I'd come back, woke it up, broke the loop. A sound rumbled from deep below, not a growl, but laughter, thick, wet, and ancient. The townsfolk in unison whispered, "The mouth opens." I don't remember walking to the edge of the well. One moment I was staring at that photo, heart racing, memories unraveling. The next, I was standing above the open hollow, staring down into the impossible. No stairs now, no seal, just a gaping wound in the earth, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. And from deep below, a sound rose that didn't belong to anything human. A voice that wasn't a voice. A language with no shape, no start, no end. It didn't speak words. It invaded. And it remembered me. The townspeople moved for the first time in hours. They began walking toward the pit, one by one, silent. Some of them crying, some smiling, all barefoot. They didn't speak, didn't look at me. They just stood around the hollow, like spokes on a wheel, arms raised, eyes empty. And I knew somehow, without anyone telling me, this was the final cycle, the last offering. I turned to run, back toward the woods, the road, reality. But the town was gone. Only red fog. The trees twisted like hands. The sky pulsed in sync with the thing below. And when I turned back, Clay was standing behind me. Or what was left of him. His face was longer now. Skin pulled tight, eyes nothing but twin spirals of ember light. He smiled, calm, familiar. "You always run." I backed away, shaking. "I'm not part of this." "You were," he said. "You are." He looked up at the blood-colored sky. "But you made the mistake of remembering." Behind him, the well shuddered. The pulsing sped up. The air thickened. The red lines across the stone began to glow white-hot, then split, and from within the pit, something rose. Not fast, not violent, graceful. A hand, long, pale, bone-thin, reached up over the edge, each finger ending in a curled black nail. Then another, and then a face. No eyes, no mouth, just skin. But somehow, it was smiling. My legs buckled. I crawled backward as the thing hoisted itself up, dragging its elongated form from the throat of the hollow. It towered over us, towered over the town. And the people? They knelt, heads bowed, arms raised, chanting something silent. The thing turned its faceless head toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. And then it spoke, but not with sound. It pushed a memory into my mind, a loop, an image I'd never seen but always known. Me kneeling before it, knife in hand, clay beside me, a town watching, me whispering, "If I forget, will it sleep?" And the thing replying, "Until you remember." And I had remembered. I broke the seal. I was the one who left, the one who ran, the one who broke the pact. And now, the mouth was open. Clay stepped beside me, his voice soft. "It needs a warden, or it needs to eat." I looked into the thing's blank face, and it tilted its head, waiting, choosing. I don't know what happened next. I remember heat, a red flash, the feeling of falling, and then I woke up, back in my truck. Sunrise. Oathridge was gone, just trees, no town, no road, no Mercer, no clay, no well, just dirt. I drove home in silence, didn't tell anyone, didn't sleep, but I hear it still, in the quiet. At night, the pipes in my house pulse like veins. My walls sweat in spirals, and when I turn off the lights, I see Clay, standing in the corner, smiling. Last week I found a note in my mailbox. No stamp, no address, just one sentence scrawled in jagged ink. Someone has to stay. I think next time I won't run.